Good afternoon, Internet. We are going to make yellow today. In fact, we're going to make Jacquard Yellow 101. Now, we can make it directly in the tin, but I realized I was getting a little messy that way, so I'm going to make it in a cup, which I swiped from the kitchen, and I'm going to consider one part being 2 tablespoons. So, let's see. Some of the pigment sticks. There's quite a bit of it. I guess there's 2.5 ounces, 2¼ ounces in here. And now I'm gonna, yeah, it's messier than a lot of pigments. So what I'm going to do clean up my kitchen utensils. A tablespoon. And then, since 2 tablespoons is my unit, then 8 times 2 tablespoons, 2 times 4 is, so if I want, I've got 2 tablespoons, which is 1/8 of a cup. But if I have 2, I want to get 4 times more. So I need 8 tablespoons, and that would be 1/2 cup. So I need 1/2 cup of this stuff. And I just happen to have 1/2 cup right here. And here's my gum Arabic powdered form made into liquid. And here we have that. And let's pour that into this. And lo and behold, we have yellow watercolor. Now, I'm going to rinse this out. And we want 1 part of glycerin. So 2 tablespoons of glycerin. And 2. Now, that is quite liquid because I mixed a liquid with a liquid. Everything was liquid, every ingredient. So, I see now that maybe I need gum Arabic on it. That is a lot of watercolor. And it is basically consistency of a wash. And it's not completely mixing. This thickness. I could use a little hand blender. That doesn't exactly look like yellow at this point. And let's put a lid on this. But we're going to have a lot of watercolor. I used 2 tablespoons of unit, and I got about double what I wanted. These are 4-ounce tins, and I think I have 12 ounces of liquid. I still have a bird in my studio. Excuse me, I just want to get the gum Arabic. Okay. Now, I want this to be of a richer consistency, so I think I've simply, in this instance, we have plenty of moisture and water. And so we may, when we mix up the gum Arabic, we'll need to mix it up a little thicker. And I'm going to add some gum Arabic. Let's see, I guess I'll use now, as you recall, gum Arabic seeks moisture, and of course, for cooking, the gum Arabic is used as a thickening agent. So now, basically, I'm going to suck up the soupiness of that mixture to make it more of the consistency I'd be expecting. And I'm cleaning out my tablespoon right now. There we go. And I guess that was a good place. Where's my little blender? So I'm going to mix this some more, and I like watching grass grow, so I'll come back when I'm done. We're back, and we're on Jacquard Yellow 101, and I have done the mixing. Now you get 2 1/4 ounces here. And when you put 4 parts of gum Arabic on it, you get quite a bit of watercolor. So I'm going to use my very steady hand and pour my watercolors into my 4-ounce tins. But I can see now that in 3 4-ounce tins, I got 14 ounces. So it must be more than 4 ounces the amount I'm filling them with. So we have got plenty of tins, and thought I was going to go over. Have to use the smaller tins, the 1-ounce tins. Mathematically, that's what I should have needed to do, but these are not 4-ounce tins. It's another number. Anyway, these all get better with time as well. So I just happen to have almost I think I'm going to use this one as my pot, and I'm going to put these in my stock, and I think it's a little bit bigger than your usual watercolor container for, but I'm pretty certain that this may actually have been a way many watercolorists or similar. They had pots, they got them from their chemists, and then they stored them in the pots. A lot of times the pots were open. You'd have to seal them in some way. But now we've got some watercolor that we've already done based on the drippings. So let's move along and go and get us a fresh sheet. Wind. Wind's going to blow this away. Oh, I forgot my coffee. Gonna wash my hands off. A little sticky. Then we're going to lay down some water on this side, and let's mix this up. Lay down water on most of it. Now I would have taped on the edges so it turns it into sort of a block, but let's not do that. Oh. And my clear water is not clear anymore. How did that happen? Okay. I am going to lay down some watercolor. And so, you can see I came it right out of the pot, and it looks quite nice. I'll have to get a new brush. I lost a hair. And this cost $20, this brush. I got a Escoda brush identical to this, and when it arrived it was completely trashed, damaged. So I sent it back and I could get 2 of these. Now, though, and it is squirrel that it is made from, and going all the way to the edges of this 90-pound paper. Can we actually do that? Is it allowed? I wonder if, I am going to test this 90-pound paper separate from testing the pigments. But here we have one pigment against another, and we can see some stuff happening here. And one thing that would be pretty cool is to see what happens when we get us a few cirrus clouds in there. And don't forget how we're going to be reflecting. So, can we pick any of this up? Let's see. Some things you don't want to do. Let us see. And one of the things is to not use a perfectly clean brush and a perfectly clear water. And this started to dry, and by having done so, it has experienced the condition of wet on damp. Anyway, there is a let's do that with a flat brush. And I'm going to use my flat brush to lay on a line for my horizon. And let's pull out some other pigments. I tested these pigments and paints earlier. And we can maybe introduce a light yellow ochre. Now, what's interesting is that this 90-pound paper is responding like it were 140 pounds. And this is the Montval, Canson Montval. And this is not their top-end paper. And in fact, I think in some descriptions they call it practice paper, and I think someone told them, oh, don't use that expression. Anyways, now we've got a fan going, so it's curling up. You can see the edges are curling up, but I don't see any rippling going on. So actually this 90-pound paper looks pretty good, and the curling on the corners and the edges. Now, of course, the quality, the description of the quality of a good paper is that once it is wetted and then when it dries, it should conform to its original shape and flatten out. But when you put this in a mat board, this curling disappears. And this is like a 50-cent piece of paper. Wait, how many do we get? Yeah. We get 20 sheets, 90-pound paper. You can see it. And this is Fabriano Studio. And of course they have Fabriano Artistico, and it's about 4 times more. This I think only cost $11 or something like that, and it'll be down in the descriptions. But as you can see, we're certainly flattening out here. And one thing is that this is 11 by 14, right? I forgot. 11 by 14. Okay, so I have frames that fit this and go a 1/4 inch in on every side. So that's gonna, that mat will hold this down. And now one thing is that, of course, this is a nondescript painting, so far we've just laid down some washes. But let's see if I on my flat brush. Okay, it's doing. Okay, so I got a flat brush. I just cleaned up my utensils, and here is a light yellow ochre. Now, actually I see that I have completely lifted the pigment, and so now I have perhaps what will become a nice sandy beach. So now I've lifted the pigments, and of course we've got a shoreline here, so we've got all sorts of waves happening. But now I completely lifted all of the pigment. I intended to maybe paint over with a more opaque paint, watercolor, but that wasn't to be. It simply allowed me, and you go with the flow, allowed me to remove it without having ever masked it off. You'll find that most professionals simply don't use masking, or if they do, it's only in a rare instant. Say, you want to show reflections in a pond, but then you want to have lilies, floating lily leaves and flowers on the top of that, and they're very different color, and so you would you'd want to have maybe a hard edge, and that's of course what that does for you when you use that. And one thing I've found interesting too is that here I've got a horizon line, and I've got some pretty ordinary masking tape. If we put the masking tape down, probably be able to get a nice straight horizon. And so let's add a horizon line, and almost dry brush, and then remove it. And Mark Chaplin discusses all sorts of interesting techniques, and that is among them. And so my brush that I just did that with, I unconsciously put it down. We've got wet on one side and dry on the other. What happens? Let's see what happens. Well, not much, but we do have after the sun is set, kind of an image here, and so you might go further and add some really nice images here. It's all a wash, and then you can just use, if this ever dries, and it's drying quite nicely. So this was the yellow and the violet. that we made, and we can see we can do a lot of different stuff with it. So one thing is that I could in fact monochrome this. I could in fact make up here, even up here I'm familiar with, and so I might want to put that right where the pier is going to be. And I can get more of that pigment down and by and large this area is wet or damp, but right here it's not. And what I can do is consider this the shadow. Let's get a little more water going. But this blue, the violet, I'm gonna have a little rocky water up there. Let's put the other here down. Now I just don't have that steadiness in my hands anymore. But didn't want to do that. I wanted to do more like this. Okay, so we've pretty much this is not all completely dry. And so you will see some aberrations here, and that's because I'm in a hurry. And so are you, probably. So that may be all we need to know about actually just these two handmade colors, handmade pigments, and they were really very inexpensive to make. We figured a big 4-ounce tin for $1. Oh, see, now this is wet on damp, and so you can see it's not laying down. Now it's darker here, and what we can do is, let's see, we can kind of come to a bit of a conclusion on this, and going to lift this up a bit. We can come back in when this has dried, and add some details that we can't do it when it's still damp. So that here is handmade paint that costs about $1 for a lifetime supply, made from a pigment that was intended for making shirt ink, you know, when they do textile manufacturing and textile painting with silk screen. Yeah, I used to work, one of my art jobs, I worked for a company that did silk screen signs. Actually, more than one company. I got promoted to the darkroom with a third company I tried out of high school, or college, art school. And I'm going to see if I can't make a little more interesting image here. Make it look more like watercolor instead of you just want to lay down the paint and lay it down quickly. I am sure that is any of your, if you have instructors, will tell you that. I can come back in here, but I think we're done. We can see what these pigments can do, and you can get into your own watercolor pigment making, and have you can take this approach and without grinding or mixing your own dry pigments with your own dry acacia Senegal gum arabic powder. You could, here is entirely wet, where we mix up the gum arabic and made it wet, and then we also use this wet pigment. Now, one thing that you'll notice is these are just washes, so you can come back in with your other inks, your Daniel Smith. He will have a solution for the muckiness that we can see here. So that's the end of the session of mixing up yellow. We just made a very fine yellow and used it. And earlier, just before a video just before this, we made up a violet. So this whole picture is just those two colors. Now, one thing is I just can't leave things alone. So this is still fairly dry, and I've got my beach. And one way I wash. After all, there's the pier. It must be near a beach. And so you can see we've laid that down, and this happens to be homemade paint from powdered pigment. light yellow ochre that we've done right here. And we can do some things to make that texture come out. We can also use a dry brush on the edge here. That isn't it. And we can, let's see if we can do that. And you can see we are re-wetting an area that was dry, and then we have an area here that's wet, and so we actually are producing a hard edge, which may be what you want to see. And then dry brush some of this, and then put a little texture on our beach. You don't have to use a chamois, but here I have a towel that just has too much texture on it. Now, you can do that intentionally. You can find a towel or a paper towel that has just the right texture on it. This texture is kind of interesting, but it may not produce the images that you want. And I'm doing wet on damp. I'm breaking the rules. And we'll put little footprints on the beach, and over than here. Well, how do you like it? How do you like that? We dripped some water there. What did we get out of it? We've got what looks like a sailboat. So let's get our rigger brush out. We just created and now that was the most delicate little application using a rigger. The rigger I'm using is an AIT, and it's a number 3/0 rigger, which means it's very small. And now we've got our little boat out there, and it's got some more color to it, but we're kind of going monochrome. And it's a sailboat. And well, here's a little uck. Something happened. And guess what? It's a seagull. Really bad seagull. There's more of them. Look. Oh, that's a pelican. He's going down for the kill. And let's see. What else interesting? we can do here. We can lift up with our paper towel with grooves in it. Okay, so that's not exactly working. What if we use a little bit? Re-wetting. And you can see this paint and in tandem with the paper, with a very cheap tape and a very cheap paint and a very cheap paper, we actually can have a bit of and in fact this paint lifts so well, we could probably lift this off to make a better look. And as you can see, I am lifting it off. So you can all look forward to really good quality paint for very little. It may actually be an idea for art classes. I used to be an art teacher, and our budget wasn't so hot, so we invented this. And we can rework that too. This paint just lifts off. There's I think it's the vegetable glycerin that's allowing us to rework everything easily and lifted it up. I mean, this is actually looks like an idea. It just looks like an idea. And now the waves lapping onto the shore, and then of course the waves distort the clouds. So we're just re-wetting to give us some of these effects. And the waves come one after the other. So, and so it's very subtle, and you go back in and do some more interesting stuff with that. You can go back in here when it's dry and do even more lifting, but right now it's damp And what the heck is that? I must have rested my hand here or something. Okay, so oh, it's gone now. Now I'm not seeing figuring like I had hoped for. And I just there's no granulation going on. Where is there? I must be blind. Anyway, so okay. Must be a rock. I think it's gonna be a blue rock. Okay, so that's the end of our class, or our session on making watercolor paint by hand, and then testing it on a blank sheet of inexpensive 90-pound paper. And we're just about done here. I mean, we can pull this off. It's still a little damp. Okay, we're done for today. So long for now. It is sunny, Southern California.